Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello, hello. all the online delegates as well. We'll begin the session within 5-10 minutes. To occupy the front seats, please. All the participants sitting on the back chairs, kindly come ahead and occupy the front seats, please. We are about to begin the session in few minutes. Once again, you have responded to my request. Still, many more are sitting on the back chairs. Please come ahead. Please occupy the front seats. Thank you so much. We'll begin the session in few minutes. Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Shalini Bharat Madam, Satyanarayan Sir, Shalini Aras Madam, Shri Ajit Sir, we welcome you to the dais. Please have a seats. Please have a seats. Thank you. We'll begin the session. Namaskar and Suswagatam. Good afternoon to everyone present in physical and virtual mode for the Library Technology Conclave 2022, LTC 2022, Curtain Raiser Seminar 2. Due to pandemic situation, we couldn't invite many participants for offline participation, but there are about 350 plus participants in Zoom mode, as well as the streaming will be done live on YouTube as well as Facebook. We are honored to have the notable luminaries with us today. Respected Professor Shalini Bharat, today's chief guest and speaker. Shri Ajit Balakrishnan, today's guest and speaker. Professor Shalini R.S., Program Chair, LTC 2022. Mr. N.V. Satyanarayan, Chief Managing Director, Informatics. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor V.N. Rajashekharan Pillai. Our esteemed invitees, heads of all SOMA institutions, faculty, staff, my library professional friends, and our students. I, Mrs. Gauri Gothivrekar, librarian, A.J. Somaya Institute of Engineering and Information Technology, Sion, welcome you all for this program. Diyas symbolize goodness and purity, and lighting them denotes dispelling darkness and going into light. On this note, I request the dignitaries to proceed for lighting the lamp. I request Manisha to assist them. Thank you all. Please have seats. We at Somaya believe that prayer is the act of surrendering oneself to God. It helps a person grow out of his own limitations, helplessness, and a sense of insecurity. We surrender ourselves to the feet of the Lord, realizing that it is the only way to touch the universal consciousness. Hence, as per our Somaya tradition, we hereby recite campus prayer. I request Ms. Kiran to accompany me for the same. I request all to rise for the prayer.
जगत्यां जगत् येन भुञ्जीथा मा वृतः तस्य स्विद्दनम् मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनाम् अविक्रमतु चोदयित्री सुमृतानां चेतन्ती सुमतिनां यज्ञं दधे सरस्वती असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय अमृतं गमय सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै सर्वेत्र सुखिनः सन्तु सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः.
Thanks, Ms. Kiran, Assistant Librarian, Central Library, for accompanying me in the prayer. So with the auspicious beginning, now it's time to raise the curtain as the seminar name suggests. I request Professor Shalini Bharat to raise the curtain electronically. Thank you so much, ma'am. We are very fortunate to have Professor Shalini Bharat, the Director, Vice Chancellor of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, as our chief guest and speaker for first session. I request Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Somaya Vidyavihar University, to felicitate Professor Shalini Bharat with shawl and memento as token of our affection. Thank you, sir. We are privileged to have Shri Ajit Balakrishnan, the founder, chairman and principal shareholder of Reddit.com as our second speaker. I request Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir to felicitate Shri Ajit Balakrishnan with shawl and memento as token of our esteem towards him. Thank you, sir. The LTC program chair, Professor Shalini is playing a crucial role arranging the conclave. It is our immense pleasure to felicitate Professor Shalini. I request Ms. Nirupama Warrior to felicitate Professor Shalini with shawl and memento to mark our affection. Thank you, Nirupama Madam. Nirupama Madam is working as librarian in K.J. Somaya College of Engineering. The LTC2022 is organized in collaboration with Informatics. We feel pleasure in felicitating Mr. N.V. Satyanarayan, Chief Managing Director, Informatics. I request Mr. Sagar Khatare to felicitate Mr. Satyanarayan with shawl and memento as mark of our affection. Thank you, Mr. Sagar. Mr. Sagar is working as librarian in K.J. Somaya Institute of Dharma Studies. John Maxwell says, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. We feel very fortunate to have Professor V.N. Rajeshekharan Pillai as our Vice Chancellor. Sir, your vision, wisdom, and passion have made a huge difference to the students, faculty, and staff of Somaya Vidyavihar University and Somaya Ayurvihar campus. We, the library professionals, look forward to you as our new pathfinder for us. Please accept small token of our affection and deep gratitude towards you. I request Dr. Hindura Vaidande, Emeritus Professor and University Librarian, to felicitate our Vice Chancellor, sir. Thank you all. Now I request Dr. Vaidande sir to brief about our Somaya Vidyavihar University.
Good afternoon to all. Respected Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, TISA Director Professor Shalini Madam, Rediff.com owner and the creator Ajit Balakrishnan Sir, our Program Director Shalini Madam, the Informatics CMD Mr. Satyanarayana Sir, Sri Mahavir Sir, who is the General Manager IT, and behind this all IT support, HOIs of the Somaya Vidyavihar, faculty members, staff members, library staff members, and participants. This is the curtain raiser program for the Library Technology Conclave. The main conclave would be on the 28th to 30th April 2022. Here I wanted to introduce about this Somaya campus and then about the library. The Somaya Vidyavihar campus was founded in the year of 1959 by the late Padma Bhushan Sri K.J. Somaya 1902 to 1999. In the 5 decades, it has grown into the large educational complex with 34 institutions, catering the diverse fields of education such as humanities, engineering, education, medicine, management, pure sciences, mass communication, with more than 4,000 students and more than 4,000 plus faculty members and staff of the more than an area of the campus is more than 65 acres. The Somaya Vidyavihar University, Mumbai, established under the Act 2019, University Act, and then become the operational on the 26th August 2019 Also, Somaya Vidyavihar University is the first private self-financed university in the Mumbai. There are various constituent academic institutions functioning under the Somaya Vidyavihar University, such as A.J. Somaya Institute of Management, Engineering College, Sports Academy, Institute of Dharma Studies, then Somaya School of Design, Department of Library and Information Science, and many more. Padma Bhushan Karamchand Jethabhai Somaya founded Somaya Vidyavihar, an educational trust in 1959 to provide quality holistic education. It was founded on the behalf that education is an important pillar in the nation building with the power to change its life. In education must involve the encourage holistic development of the youth. It is the known as the much of this science, technology, engineering, management, social science, and so many other things. Somaya Vidyavihar encompasses 30, that I mentioned about that there are many institutions there. Just I wanted to mention about this. We do have the central library of the Somaya Vidyavihar University, which has been located in the 4th floor of the engineering building. Actually, it is a library complex from the 1st floor to 6th floor. All libraries are there. Where on the 4th floor that university library has been set up. Also, we do have and launching the Department of Library and Information Science from this academic year. Already PhD programs has been launched. I just wanted to bring to the attention of the all the participants and then guests. We do have the Master of Library and Information Science 2 years integrated program, where we are having more than 60% of the IT portion and the 40% of the library and information science. And we wanted to have this is the high school concept we are having. And we wanted to have the students, those who wanted to go for the, make the career for the final year. As a electives, we have kept as a webology, web page designing, museology, archaeology, and so many specialized things we are here. So also they will get the good opportunity in the industry and R&D sector. So and this is a part of, we are organizing on behalf of the Somaya Vidyavihar and Somaya Vidyavihar University. You all are welcome for this function. And again, I wanted to mention you that all of you are requested to register for the main conclave of the, it is 28th to 30th April 2022. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Vaidande sir, for briefing about our Somaya Vidyavihar University as well as our Department of Library Science. The LTC2022, scheduled during 28th to 30th April 2022, is the 6th annual event of the Library Technology Conclave Series initiated by Informatics India in collaboration with academic, research and corporate organizations since 2016 on themes connected with technologies impacting the libraries. Now I invite Mr. Satyanarayan to elaborate more about informatics and LTC. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, friends. I welcome you all for this curtain raiser function, second in the series, in the city of Mumbai at Somaya University, where we are going to have the main conclave, as already said, on April 28th to 30th. Thank you all for joining us today. I would also like to welcome our chief guest, Mr. Shalini, Bharat, and Mr. Ajit Balakrishnan. It's really nice to see all of you sitting here physically. We are all bored of seeing faces on screen in the last 2 years. So happy that COVID is almost ending. We don't want it to come back at any cost. And this morning when I got up early to catch the flight, I was on road in Bangalore at 5:30. I was amazed to see Bangalore full of traffic and people waiting to catch up autos and whatnot to go to offices. That's really a nice sight to see. And now campuses are, buzz with a lot of students. So we see faces. I hope we can remove the mask completely as soon as possible. We are back to almost normal. Friends, I'm sure by April 28th, we'll be more than 100% normal for us to organize this event in a completely, relaxed, happy mood without any fear. Informatics started this event, Library Technology Conclave, in 2016. This is the sixth in the series. Most of you here, I'm sure, know about informatics. I hardly need to tell you. However, a few words as customary. As all of you know, Informatics, which is a 4-decade-old company, is an early pioneer starting with online business. We call ourselves a pre-internet online company because when we started talking about online, there was no online of the kind you are all using today. It was what I call pre-internet online, which was based on what we used to call then X25 network. And today, of course, it's all online. We have another early pioneer among our chief guests, Mr. Balakrishnan, who started his online 2 years before Google. Rediff Online, most of you may be interested in knowing, is the earliest, perhaps the first online company, started almost during the dot-com boom, which has greatly survived because most of the online companies that started during the dot-com boom went off the business. And I must compliment you, Mr. Balakrishnan, for really holding the fort and taking it well. The first and long surviving and doing well online company. So we moved to the current online during late 90s, which we call TCP/IP based online technically. In between, we were in a transient technology called CD-ROM technology. So we evolved. Our company evolved with the changing, growing new technologies all the time we started the company. And that was really exciting for all of us because every kind of a wave in technology was a new learning experience for us. And we are today here with a lot more new exciting things happening. And we thought of this Library Technology Conclave with one intent in mind. As all of you know, libraries were early pioneers, I may say, in using technology. As I mentioned, pre-internet online was extensively used more by the libraries than by anybody in those days. It was not a consumer online. And it's the librarians who started using for their faculty, largely in US and West, and slowly starting in India during those days. And not only that, the libraries in the university campuses, I may say, were the earliest to implement technology for managing their productivity, or what we call, Mr. Balakrishnan, you are from an IT industry, what today people call ERP or business process automation end to end. Libraries did it in early 60s and 70s. That was the time where campuses had big computers, but campuses never had end-to-end business process automation, which has come much later. And even today, most of the universities do not have that kind of end-to-end business process automation. So I would say libraries are early pioneers in implementing technology for managing their operations, enterprise operations, very early, beginning in 70s, which also came into India. So that early pioneering status the libraries enjoyed should not diminish, should not go away. We must really be up to the technology all the time, be live with the technology, absorbing. And this was the whole intention that we thought we must have an annual conclave on library technology. And with this intent, we started in 2016. And when we started with the library management system, the first two. And the third one, which we had the first one was in Bangalore, the second was in Pune, which we organized in partnership with TCS Pune. The third one we had in Goa in partnership with Goa University, where our theme was library service platforms. As all of you know, libraries are now integrating both the library management system, which is like ERP systems in the enterprise parlance, and also the information retrieval on the same platform. The fourth, which we had in Cochin, in collaboration with the Cochin University of Science and Technology. Incidentally, Professor Pillai was the Vice Chancellor of the Cochin University of Science and Technology. And there we had our conclave in 2019. And the fifth one we had in Bangalore during the pandemic period. And we had partnered with three organizations. One is the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences in Bangalore, and the fourth paradigm, CSIR Fourth Paradigm Institute in Bangalore, and the Institute for Advanced Studies in Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. All the three of them joined us as partners, which was on e-science, the fourth paradigm in science, which talks about data intensive research and managing that. The sixth one, the theme which Professor Shalini, the program chair, is going to talk more about, is going to be on research data management. This again, we thought, is an exciting topic for the information and libraries science community, because when we look at it, it is an opportunity where the profession need to take this challenge ahead and to climb it as a responsibility in the campuses. A lot of research data is being generated years after years, but it's only very late that the scientific community realized that a lot of data generated is not being managed. And now that needs to be managed. And I may say that the creators of anything, including the content, are not always the good managers of the resources they create. It's true for any resource. Like actors are not generally good directors of the movies. So in the same way, the data generated by the scientist will have to be managed by somebody within the organization. And if anybody who is in the right position to do that today are the libraries, who already have ventured well in the open access area by setting up institutional repositories, what we call preprints. In fact, in COVID scenario, the preprints became much more popular among the general public. So it is an initiative which is now widespread. So friends, with this intent, the sixth library conclave was the theme research data management was chosen for sixth library conclave. So with this, I would like to once again invite you all for registering for LTC 2018 main conclave on 28th and 29th, 30th. And also encourage your staff members, colleagues, and others to join. Not only that, also the researchers in your organization who also will have an indirect, I would say the direct interest in efficient management of the research data they create. While informatics has been around business, it has evolved, as I said, with technology as the focus, but content as the prime resource which we depend on. In fact, we have a kind of a, what I would say, tagline within our company. We always say, while content is the king, which was coined during the dot-com boom, content is the king, we say technology is the master. So it has to be a blend of, in IT is I plus T always, information and technology makes IT. One depends on the other extensively. And informatics is proud to present LTC 2022. And once again, I invite all of you. And while thanking you again, I request my colleagues, Devendra, to present about a 2.5 minutes multimedia, giving you an overview of informatics, which most of you might have seen. And let us visit what is informatics about through this multimedia. Thank you all again.
E-Journal Archive in India for Indian medical journals. Driven by the internet advantage, Informatics developed its first global information product named JGate. JGate is truly the world's largest database for journal literature by its coverage of over 50,000 journals. The journey has continued with a diverse portfolio of products and services, evolved 40 years ago when information was scarce and online was unheard of. Informatics was envisioned with a digital vision by an entrepreneur working as a librarian then to bridge the global information access gap in the country. This pioneering vision is a global company today with products and services benefiting millions of users in the academic, research and corporate segments around the world. India Today magazine described the venture as the first online information company in India for global knowledge access. Serving global information companies on a project for supplying consolidated Indian business information helped Informatics to ideate its first digital information product named India Business Insight (IBI). Credited with the enviable reputation as the pioneers in the online and CD-ROM based information business in India, Informatics started creating new digital information products through 1990s. Neuromed on CD, a product initiative funded by NIMHANS Bangalore, was the earliest e-journal archive in India for Indian medical journals. Driven by the internet advantage, Informatics developed its first global information product named JGate. JGate is truly the world's largest database for journal literature by its coverage of over 50,000 journals. The journey has continued with a diverse portfolio of products and services evolving across 4 business units: information products, digital library solutions, enterprise content management and publishing. The product family of Informatics is a growing list with innovation driven by the latest in technology and evolving market needs. In an industry where content is the king and technology is the master, Informatics has been a proud pioneer and leading player. Gaining 40 years of insightful experience by 2020, Informatics continues to be driven by values with a passion to deliver excellence.
and thank you, Satyanarayana sir. Am I audible? Hello? Thank you, Satyanarayana sir. As rightly said by you, we are really optimistic towards getting maximum physical participation for our LTC 2022, that is conducted in April month. So now I request Professor Shalini Aras, Program Chair 2022, to brief about the LTC 2022 program. Over to you, madam.
Good afternoon to everyone, and sincere hearty welcome to each one of you present here in person, as well as those participants who are participating online. I would like to extend a very special welcome to our chief guests here, Mr. Ajit Balakrishnan, founder and CEO of Rediff.com. Satya already mentioned about how Rediff was a pioneer in India in the internet industry, so I will not go about it. A very warm welcome to you, Ajit, for this event, and I take this opportunity to thank him. He might have forgotten the kind of support that he has extended to me over many of my endeavors, so I would like to, because over the last 15 or so years, I have done couple of events and programs, etc., to which all of which he has supported very dearly. So that is another side of Mr. Balakrishnan. That is, he supports any ideas or innovative things that we bring it to his attention. So a very warm welcome to you on behalf of the LTC team here, and a sincere welcome to Professor Shalini Bharat, Vice Chancellor, Director of Tata Institute of Social Sciences here, who is going to bring the researcher perspective, especially from the point of view of the social science research. Because generally when we say research or scientific research, even though the word scientific research is used, it is not confined to science. We include all of the endeavors of the humankind, including humanities and social sciences. So that was one of the reasons that we would like to have this kind of an event wherein we bring in different perspectives. While Ajit Balakrishnan is here to present the technology perspective, Professor Shalini Bharat is here to give the social science research data perspective. Well, this program, Curtain Riser event, as the name suggests, is a curtain riser. The main event, the LTC 2022, is just round the corner, a couple of weeks away. So the idea behind a curtain riser is to primarily enthuse everyone, especially the potential participants and other stakeholders, to the theme of the conference. So that is what I am trying to do here, enthuse everybody to the theme of the conference. The theme of LTC 2022 is Research Data Management and Stewardship, Building Blocks for Open Science. This theme we decided to have for a variety of reasons, including the spur given by the pandemic. Let me elaborate a bit more on the theme, but before that I would like to elaborate a little bit more on the LTC itself, that is Library Technology Conclave. Satya gave one perspective of why he has chosen to start this series, the LTC. I am going to give a slightly different perspective, that is the connection between research data and libraries. As we all know, libraries evolved or emerged primarily in response to many of the demands, pushes and pulls of the society. See, as author Harari says, the cognitive revolution began some 70,000 years back with the human mind, the cognition developing. With the development of the cognition, our individual memories also develop. So we could actually store, we can still do that, of course, hopefully as good as we were doing thousands of years ago, store and organize memories. They are called individual memories. Soon the humanity realized that this is not enough. That's why the civilization developed the written word, so that we could record this facts and figures and memories, etc., on some medium. So with the development of the written word, and particularly with the development of the printing technology, I would say, there was a need for public memories. That is where you could actually store these individual memories that were recorded by individuals, by scientists, by tradesmen, by everybody else in the society, so that you have a public memory. So in addition to the individual memory, you need an extension of this individual memory through public memories. So the connection between data, whether it is transaction data that the millennia old people were used to actually record, and maybe on pebbles, maybe on stone, etc. Then when we move to the written word through manuscripts and then to the printed word, there was a need for a institutionalization of this public memory, and that's how, whether it is the ancient Alexandria library or the modern libraries of the world, that is their primary role. Institutionalizing the public memories of data, research, what have you, stories, etc. So that is this connection between libraries and research data, or any data for that matter. I mean, we are going to talk more about research data here, even though data is, in fact, data science for that matter, is one of the much hyped about science, hyped about word. Everybody talks about, data being the new oil, as they say. But research data is not so much focused on by the business community or the other communities. So the idea behind the research data management is to focus, this conference is to focus on the research data management side of the new oil, that is the research data. So if we can talk about the new oil as the data, we say research data is actually the core of open science. So where is the connection between research data management and open science, which is the theme of the this LTC2022? As you all know, science or scientific research, or to be precise, more precise, I would say, modern science had its origin somewhere in the 17th century, primarily due to the emergence of another medium of recording research, that is the scientific journal, as it is known as, our scholarly journal. The scholarly journal had its birth somewhere in 1665, 17th century, and that gave the impetus for scholarly communication and scientific communication. That was another, I would say, milestone in modern science, or the emergence of modern science. And with that, with the development of scientific journal, the connection between science and libraries became stronger, because at least books, someone who was rich enough could buy books. But journals, I would consider even today, even the richest people cannot buy all the journals that are there. You saw in the video that there are 50,000 journals that the Informatics JGate itself is covering. So that is where the institutionalization of the public memory, in a way, got stronger with modern science, or with the emergence of modern science in the 17th century. Today, science, at least according to many people, the future of science is what they say as e-science or open science. What is e-science? Very simply said, we can say e-science is where data science meets science. Or what Jim Gray, the famous concept of fourth paradigm, the person who coined the word or the term fourth paradigm, Jim Gray of Microsoft, he coined this term fourth paradigm to refer to this phenomena of data science actually merging with scientific research. So scientific research, or science in general, you can say, became part and parcel of, in a way, data science. Or data science actually entered scientific research through the fourth paradigm. And that became known as e-science somewhere in the first decade of the 21st century. The term e-science was coined, and in fact, the LTC 2021 theme, as Satya mentioned, was e-science and digital library, building communities for collaboration. So e-science, in that conference also we included some sessions on open science, but the e-science evolved into open science since the last couple of years. Open science, in one sense, as said earlier, is considered to be the future of science. Today, if you look at it, in a way, the pandemic has not only accelerated this movement. The open science is a movement which was started some 15 or 20 years back, you can say, with many developments leading to open science, but it got, I would say, further accelerated primarily due to the pandemic and the impact of pandemic on health and science, medical research, etc. Because in one sense, research data or the research data management as a field got its first recognition somewhere in 1996 with the Human Genome Project. That is when the Human Genome Project actually showed to the world, it evidenced to the world that sharing research data accelerates science, it advances science. That was first evidence of, first concrete evidence of why researchers should be sharing their data. Despite 3 decades, still we are talking about why we should be sharing research data. The main reason is people are still skeptical about sharing of this research data, even though the scientific paradigm itself, the word paradigm, of course, is attributed to Thomas Kuhn, who wrote the famous book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. He conceived and popularized the term paradigm to talk about actually how science changes from one paradigm to another. I would say today, science has changed from the earlier closed system paradigm to an open science paradigm today, primarily because of many developments, and that has been accelerated due to the pandemic. And one of the early developments, as I mentioned earlier, was Human Genome Project, which actually proved, as I said earlier, that sharing data is useful, it advances science, it advances society, it also contributes to the growth of industry. One other factor that has contributed to the emergence of open science, open data, etc., is the availability of technology or the data sciences. Because today, in fact, there is a recent Lancet article on how science or open science should collaborate with data scientists in order to reap the benefits of open science. Because you have tools and technologies that enable us to have the benefits of sharing data, at the same time taking care of issues of, it could be privacy, security, and various other kinds of issues. So that is open science, I would say, is the culmination of all these different movements. In a way, as I said, pandemic perhaps is the tipping point for the emergence or the solidification of open science. Why pandemic? Because you might have seen, just 2-3 months back, everyone was, of course, panicked about the new variant, Omicron, etc. And that happened. I'm not talking about the Omicron variant itself. The knowledge and all that happened only because people were sharing the genome sequence of this variant, and within a matter of hours, the whole world knew about this and were able to actually manage this. So if you think that how we have managed the pandemic situation today, when I say we, I mean the whole world, is because of the scientific community, the research community, the technology communities. Everybody is collaborating together to manage science, so thereby you have a better world. That is the end of, or I would say end goal of open science, to advance society through advancement of science. So open science is good, that is evidence, but still it remains, the scientific community also remains skeptical about data sharing. Despite the fact that there are various principles that have been developed. one of the main principles is called FAIR. I mean, I'm not actually marketing the Fair and Lovely here and being politically incorrect. The FAIR principle, that is, FAIR stands for findability, interoperability, and reusability. Findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability. The FAIR principles govern the research data sharing. So there are principles in place, there are technologies in place. However, there is skepticism. So one of the goals of this conference conclave is to bring the research community, scientific community across the sciences, technologies, and the social sciences, and the community which manages this. As I already in the beginning itself said, the library community has been traditionally over millennia the place where research records data is being managed. The stewardship of this research data has to be taken or has to be given to one community or the other, and this is not just a turf that somebody is claiming. It's, as is true of everything in society today, it's a collaborative effort. So research community has to collaborate with the library information science community, and the data science community has to give the necessary tools and technologies to make this happen. And that is how the theme of this conference, and that is the goal of this conclave. Because research data, like research itself, is not owned by anyone. Research data is collective ownership, or you can say even collective or shared custodianship. In fact, that reminds me of one of it's been I would say a tagline of a luxury watch company since several decades, or I don't know when they started using that. You might have heard of a luxury watch company called Patek Philippe. Their tagline is, you don't really own the watch. You only keep it safe or maintain it for the next generation. I would say all research scientists and everybody has to have this view. You don't really own anything. We are only taking care of it. We are only custodians of it. It's like any other asset. We are only taking care of it. We are stewarding it, or custodians of this asset, that is research data, which needs to be passed on, which needs to be shared with everybody else, and also to be passed on to others. Because we have enough evidence to say that sharing data leads to good quality research. So that is the theme, and that's our objective. In order to achieve this objective, naturally we have developed various sub-themes for the conference. There are 6 technical sessions, 1 session on open science frameworks. One of the triggering or motivating factor also is the UNESCO 41st General Assembly actually committed itself to, the member countries have committed themselves to the open science framework. So that makes it now almost, I would say, kind of mandatory for all the countries to follow this open science framework. So one of the sessions will be on open science framework, the second session will be on research life cycle, and the third session is particularly for the information science community, metadata standards, and the fourth session is on data governance. So there are 6 sessions which are going to cover the gamut of issues that the open science and research data management throws up, because there are several challenges that we need to actually understand. So we have these 6 technical sessions, but we also understand that the conclave has an, I would consider it as a responsibility, as Satya mentioned, that the library information science community as well as the research community should warm up to this newly emerging field. So that's why we have on day 1, that is April 28th, we have 2 tutorials. One tutorial is on the basics of research data management. That will be given by Dr. Robin from University of Edinburgh, Robin Rice University. She is a data librarian, that's her designation, data librarian from University of Edinburgh, UK. That will be one tutorial, basics of RDM. And the second tutorial would be on the research data maturity model by Professor Kevin Croston of Syracuse University. He will be doing the second tutorial to take how do you actually mature this RDM models, etc. How do you take it to the next level of maturity? That is what he is going to focus on. So day 1, that is April 28th, we have 2 tutorials. followed by, of course, the formal inauguration. And we have Dr. Naveen Kumar, who is the Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, inaugurating the conference. So followed by the next 2 days, we have these 6 sessions. And the format of each of these sessions is we do not have contributed papers. We only have keynotes followed by panel discussions, because we believe that now it is important for us to debate on some of these challenges and issues that are facing us. So we have keynotes and then also followed by panel discussion. Those are the 6 sessions that we are going to have for the April 29th and 30th. And another important announcement that I would like to make at this platform is the 2 awards instituted by Informatics. Informatics Outstanding Researcher Award, which is an award given by Informatics to outstanding researchers in the field of information. Meant for only, eligibility is primarily they should be Indians and they should be less than 50 years of age. And then we have a jury to look at that. So, and this award carries, apart from a plaque and other things, 1 lakh rupees to attend conference, international conference. That is that is the new award that Informatics has instituted, Informatics Outstanding Researcher Award. Our second award is Informatics Innovation Award, which has been in place since the last 4 or 5 years, which is meant for any innovation that a library has introduced for the library services. So that award is also there. So the last but final session is for this award ceremony. And the final session is actually another innovative feature of the LTC is the Spark. It's primarily meant for participants of the conference to share their views in a more structured manner. So that is what is called as the Spark. And we end with a valedictory function as usual. So this is the overview of the theme of the conclave and why we have chosen this theme, as well as why, I hope I have convinced you, why all of you should be attending and get your friends over and others to attend this conference, because open science and RDM are the new future. So with this, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Rajashekharan Pillai, one of the organizers of this conclave, and Mr. Satyanarayana, another organizer of this conference, that is Informatics, and then the Somaya Vidya Vihar University for having assigned me this task of shaping this particular conference. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing each one of you with your, I wouldn't say family, friends to this conference. Okay, bring them along and let's have a good conference and hopefully shape the open science framework in India. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shalini ma'am, for putting light on the theme and the open science movement. Yes, perfectly said, as mentioned by you, that we expect the research community to be the custodians and not as the owners. Here I remember one verse by Sant Jnaneshwar in Pasaidan, Zoze Vanshila Tothela Ho. So whatever everyone wishes should get the wish fulfilled. So thank you so much, ma'am. Now it's time to begin our sessions. I request Mrs. Deepa Kasbekar, Assistant Librarian, KJ Somaya Medical College, to introduce our chief guest and first session speaker, Professor Shalini Bharat. Over to Deepa, ma'am.
Thank you, Gauri. Namaskar. Good afternoon, all. I am highly obliged, actually, to get a chance to introduce to our respected chief guest, and she is one of our speaker first session, Professor Shalini Bharat. Professor Shalini Bharat is the Director, Vice Chancellor of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Ma'am has nearly 4 decades of experience in teaching, research, capacity building, advocacy, and field action in broad areas of social science and health, social development, family studies, and minority community demographics. She is also known for her work on equity and access issues with special reference to reproductive and women's health, social determinants of HIV and TB, and many more prominent health issues related to women and children. Ma'am currently also leads the Institute's Saksham program, a sub-recipient of Global Fund grant for developing and implementing psychosocial counseling and social linkages for drug-resistant TB patients in 4 Indian states. Prior to this, between 2012 and 15, when Saksham program was the principal recipient of the Global Fund grant for HIV counseling project across the country with 36 university partners, she served as its national program director. Ma'am has served as a consultant on many national and international projects. Her research work has received funding from a range of sponsors, including Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, Sir Dorabji Tata Trust, and many international agencies as well. In 2002, she was invited by the State Department of the US government under its International Visitors Program to visit HIV/AIDS programs in various US universities and was a visiting faculty to London School of Economics, Yale University, and University of Le Havre, France, and to numerous national and international conferences and seminars. She has authored 5 books, and currently she is the head of the editorial board of the Indian Journal of Social Work. As a member on several national scientific advisory committees and boards, ma'am is actively engaged with a wide range of national level programs, schemes, policies, and field interventions in health and public health, social development, gender, HIV/AIDS, TB prevention, among others. So here we a perfect speaker for today's seminar, Professor Shalini Bharat. Ma'am, please take charge of the time.
Thank you for that very elaborate and kind words from my bio. Professor Rajshekharan Pillai, Mr. Ajit Balakrishnan, Mr. Satyanarayana, Professor Shalini Urs, Professor Vaidande, all distinguished guests, faculty and students joining on real and virtual modes. Namaskar, my Indian way of greeting that applies to all time zones for all those who are in a hybrid mode with us today. It's my pleasure and honor to be here for an important event, the Library Technology Conclave 2022 Curtain Raiser. Let me congratulate you, Professor Pillai and Professor Shalini and Mr. Satyanarayana for choosing a topic that is so relevant and topical in the backdrop of government's Draft National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy 2020 and also the NEP, National Education Policy 2020. But at the outset, let me confess, I'm no expert on library science and the profession. It's a very well-developed profession, but as a doctoral scholar and later as a faculty researcher, I have spent fruitful time in libraries of various universities. I owe a lot in my academic career to libraries, and this is a small way to show my appreciation. In this presentation, I have attempted to discuss the role of Indian libraries of present times in supporting the Indian researchers and the research ecosystem to align and engage with the open science approach. We live in a world that is continuously challenged in myriad ways with immense and long-lasting impacts, particularly for the less privileged and for the most disadvantaged. One of the many challenges posed is on account of the way the world itself keeps changing due to several complex interconnected pathways. At one level, we see our individual attitudinal and behavioral practices, and on the other, at a very macro level, the rapid scientific advancements, the geopolitical developments, resultant conflicts, the mental health pandemic, I would say, constantly shifting balance of power, environmental degradation, cross-border movement of humanity, and so on. Our understanding of this world therefore requires an update on a constant basis. Scientific knowledge generation for such an update through high-quality data and data science assume critical importance as they did in the past and will do so in the future. It is probably a naive question, where does scientific knowledge get generated? The answer would, of course, be universities. But while universities cannot claim to be the only hubs of scientific research, their primacy in leading this activity is widely acknowledged. Of course, there are standalone research institutes, industry-driven labs, and government and privately owned research enterprises as well. But by and large, universities, both public and private, or in mixed partnerships, are the main engines of scientific research and therefore play a vital role in finding solutions to societal problems and challenges. Critical COVID research, for example, in finding vaccine breakthroughs was concentrated in a couple of universities in the US. Everybody heard about Johns Hopkins, Stanford, Harvard, UCLA, Yale, etc. And a few UK universities, Oxford, Imperial College London, King's College. And the basic corona research, virus research, was done in some of the Chinese University of Tsinghua, Peking, Wuhan, and others. This important function of universities is what accords many universities of the developed world a special edge, giving them a high academic ranking, although the same cannot be said of most Indian universities, save a few. For example, COVID research was concentrated in a few IITs, some ICMR institutions, and industry-based research labs like Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech. Most traditional Indian universities were not the sites of COVID research. TIS, NIMHANS, and a few other academic institutes, of course, played a critical role, especially in taking care of and researching psychosocial issues. One of the reasons for this is the artificial division between teaching and research functions of universities. And this is particularly true of Indian universities, where teaching is the major activity in many colleges and universities, and research is sporadic and unevenly distributed across departments and faculty streams. And this happens in all fields: science and technology, engineering, management, and the social sciences. The 19th century Humboldtian concept of a university as one that combines teaching and with research is not how we see many Indian universities functioning today. And when research and teaching, we know that when research and teaching feed each other, they contribute to advancements in scientific knowledge and produce scientists of tomorrow. But most Indian universities have decoupled teaching from high quality research. And I say this here in order to lay a context for my presentation. One of the major challenges Indian research space faces is the neglect of social science research. And institutions, departments in national policies and funding practices very often are missing. COVID pandemic demonstrated beyond doubt, and before that, the HIV pandemic, with which I was related through my research. They demonstrated why and how social science is integral to fighting such crises unleashed on the global humanity. Human behavior, attitudes, and practices, whether around use of face masks or the practice of hand hygiene or around vaccines, were critical for successfully implementing national COVID prevention policies and actions. In many parts of the globe, distrust or mistrust of science and scientists, questions around funding mechanisms, activism around political decision-making, and policy directives derailed the vaccination agenda. But in other parts of the world, this has not happened, including in India. An important departure you must have noticed from previous times was the constant sharing of COVID information in the country, all based on latest scientific data by the top scientists of the country in simple and easy to understand language. This brought COVID science closer to the common public, and in our experience, in India, the universal immunization program was a background in which our public understood vaccines. It is important to understand and analyze such social trends to understand acceptance of vaccination among Indian masses. Let me give another example. Addressing structural inequalities like poverty, gender, understanding stigma and discrimination towards people with HIV and towards people most vulnerable to HIV acquisition, and involving affected communities in HIV prevention efforts were among the most important strategies to prevent HIV epidemic from galloping away, as was predicted for India in the early part of the HIV epidemic. Therefore, in practically every field, understanding human behavior and the structural and societal factors, learning the political and economic perspectives are basic for bringing about social transformation, acceptance of government policies and programs, and so on. The neglect of social science is therefore a serious issue that countries across the globe can ill afford to ignore anymore. Social science research is quite central and not peripheral to finding solutions for problems facing humanity and the society in general. And now to the topic of my presentation. In the last 2 decades and more, there has been an explosion of research data, to which Professor Urs also alluded. Indeed, some feel that we are swimming in data, or some call it the data deluge or the data tsunami. But the same cannot be said about the management of our data sets using principles of open access. The research data management field is inadequately understood and poorly developed in the country and needs urgent attention because data are at the heart of all research and scholarship. And open science begins with this unit that builds the rest of the research edifice. The Mortonian principles of modern science, propounded in his classic Sociology of Science, namely communism, universalism, disinterestedness, and organized skepticism, guide the open science movement. Open science is described as the new approach to scientific process based on the spirit of cooperation and collaboration for knowledge generation and its utilization for the benefit of society. Not a very new movement, it was sometimes also called as Science 2.0 or Science in Transition. And the purpose of open society as defined by OECD is to make the primary outputs of publicly funded research results, publications, and the research data publicly accessible in digital format with no or minimal restrictions. Clearly, the idea behind open science is that all forms of data, such as the raw data, lab notes, field reports, data spreadsheets, diaries, audio and video tapes, visual materials, such as maps, images, field photos, etc., and also ethics clearance reports, consent forms, and the like, are made available for reuse, reproduction, and redistribution in a transparent and ethical manner through collaborative networks. The aim is to make science more fair, more equitable, accountable, inclusive, and participatory. Such transparency about data sharing is ultimately expected to enhance rigor and robustness of scientific pursuits, and very importantly, to avoid unnecessary duplication of efforts, both human resource and financial. But open science is not about data sharing alone. It is also about applying the principles of transparency and openness to the entire research process and to its byproducts and tools, as I mentioned before, and which also includes technical briefs, flowcharts, code books, analytical frameworks, and so on. A critical element of open science is the public engagement in science, what has now also come to be called as citizen science. So to sum up, this implies all of the following: open access to publications, to research data, open source software, open collaboration, open peer review, open notebooks, resources, monographs, citizen science, public engagement, research crowdfunding, and so on. The underlying perspectives and rationale of the open science movement need better understanding if we are committed to promoting its practice. And I find sometimes this is not made known or is not explored further. For researchers who are trained to treat data as private, as confidential, and as personal property often, because we feel we have invested our time, our intellect on generating this data, so it belongs to us or it belongs to me. For such scientists and researchers, and also those for whom research outputs have now become career-building exercises, it would be important to understand the social science perspective on open science. From the sociological perspective, the argument is that research is an inherently collaborative activity and community has a stake in it, and therefore ownership rights on data and other products also belong to the community. The economic viewpoint considers research as a public good, since it is funded by public money, and hence it should be accessible to all without cost and any restrictions. But beyond these early and basic arguments are some of the more recent that appeal from the point of justice and well-being. As Madhavi Sundar argues in her 2012 book, From Goods to Good Life, the criticality of the ability to participate in culture is essential for the enjoyment of human freedom. She argues for fair access to culture and the importance of plural values associated with freedom, equality, democracy, and so on. The other influence comes from the cultural turn movement in humanities and social sciences that places the concept of culture at the heart of all inquiries, methodological and theoretical. The practice of open science requires the imbibing of all these assumptions and perspectives by all stakeholders, not just researchers, but by institution heads, policymakers, funders, publishers, library and IT administrators, and the industry as key consumer of research. Now, what is the role of libraries and library technology in open science? For libraries and librarians, the two most relevant elements in my mind are open access data and open access scientific publications. Must be there are others as well, but what is immediate is these two. But research data management is fast becoming an important sphere of activity within libraries and the IT division, as the research data management, I think, sits at the confluence of these two important divisions of any university system. Here it would be instructive to explore how open science is understood and practiced among Indian researchers who are the producers and consumers of research data, and among library staff and professionals. The few Indian studies available on this aspect and what I could gather for the last 4 or 5 years reveal that we have a long way to go in aligning Indian research ecosystem and libraries with open science principles and practice. A study of 47 central universities of the country conducted by Tripathi, Shukla and Sonkar 2017 showed that Indian universities are at a rudimentary stage of research data management and open science practice. Libraries of these sampled universities had no mention of RDM or OS policy on their website, and library staff were not oriented to the requirements. The study concludes that library information science curriculum needs a complete overhaul for training new entrants and short-term certificate and continuing education programs for those in service in these principles and practice. Yet another study of 15 well-established national science and technology research and academic institutes found that the role of libraries in carrying out research data management at these institutes was largely absent. This is a study done in 28 or published in 2018. Only one of the institutes had a data policy in place, 2 were in the process, while the rest had no such policies. And in only 2 institutes, the library had some role to play, which was also at a fairly early stage of development. The study concludes that data policy formulation at institutional levels would be the first step in the direction of developing data curation and management role of libraries. Compared to the absence of open data sharing and research data management, open access publishing trends among Indian scientists are not completely lacking, although these are unevenly spread over universities and research institutions. With 317 open access journals and over 90 open access repositories, India, according to one study, ranks 15 and 17 for OA publishing and OA repositories respectively, which is considered not to be too bad. This constitutes 23% of world's OA publications, but still 7% less than the average of 30%. While a majority of Indian researchers lack awareness about open access publishing and open access repositories as part of open science, government efforts as establishing open data repositories are promising. The study identified several such repositories at all, but one of these was in science and technology fields. The science and technology fields, of course, includes most of the fields like earth sciences, meteorology, biotechnology, oceanography, space science, and so on. But the lone social science repository identified in this particular study is established by InflibNet for ICSSR. It's called the ICSR Data Service, and many of you may know this. It is in collaboration with Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation and holds mainly large socio-economic survey data and serves scholars and policymakers who work on social and economic issues. The free data sets are accompanied by user guides and other supporting materials. Research data management practices, however, followed by some of the international research organizations like Population Council, which has an India office. Their data sets are made available on the Harvard Dataverse since 2012 as part of their open access policy. And I suspect there are many other similar research institutions with program partners in the US and other countries who have advanced open access data practices. Now, while research data management is poorly understood, even among librarians, and explains the limited role of library in Indian context, the knowledge, attitude, and practices of researchers also play a role. The fact that most Indian researchers are not fully aware about the concept of open science, and even those who are aware equate it mainly with open access publications, contributes to this underdeveloped role of library and library technology in India. There is lack of confidence in parting with own data sets for wider use and reuse, which could also be due to researchers' poor research documentation practices. And I must say these are not unique to Indian researchers alone. I came across a French study which found most researchers there were comfortable with storing data on their personal computers, and less than 20% stored on their university's server or on cloud. Only 40% of these researchers were inclined to deposit their data on open access system. The individual control over one's data is a widespread practice and probably stems from our socialization as isolated researchers during doctoral work and lack of adequate exposure to team or collaborative research as part of our early training for research. Indian researchers also lack knowledge about copyrights, intellectual property rights, and the principles of data management for creating open access data sets and systems. An important observation is the low use of, and this I think should be a concern for all library professionals, that library resources by faculty and doctoral students of their own institute libraries is also quite low. A library usership survey at two leading research institutes in Pune and Ahmedabad revealed that only about 55% usage of resources contained in their own institute libraries, which means that whatever they were putting in their dissertation or in their research reports, only 55% of that came from their own libraries. This could be due to lack of updated material in those libraries or the ease of Googling resources by the researchers. Increasingly, we see libraries in many universities are seeing fewer footfalls in the face of internet research, internet search engines, and several other open access systems. And library data services are unable to match the sophistication of these search engines. The concept of embedded librarianship is thus absent in most libraries. In short, the library is quite remote and isolated from the ongoing research of scholars of their own universities. And this, in my view, is a shortcoming that needs to be addressed. Further, most Indian libraries are limited to providing documentation services, inter-library loan facility, and internet-aided search service. In times of COVID, of course, the remote access facility was the lifeline for scholars and the faculty. But libraries must be given due credit for supporting open access through the valuable repositories of a large number of doctoral dissertations. This initiative, which is a part of the Shodh Ganga initiative of UGC, implemented by InflibNet, is growing in volume and includes both STEM and social science dissertations. As on December 2021, the InflibNet holds full e-text of over 3.3 lakh doctoral dissertations from over nearly maybe 500 Indian universities. Sorry. This one service is of immense value to scholars around the world who can gain access to Indian research as part of India's open access policy. InflibNet, in fact, holds great promise for research data management, and its objectives include the creation of databases and training of human resource in computerized library operations and networking, among others. There are 90 or over 90 institutional repositories in India that provide free access to research outputs in the form of research reports, etc. And I think this is something that can be very easily made use of. With open science movement gaining firm ground post 2010 at least, and funding organizations and publishers mandating description of data access procedures, mechanisms and locations of data in grant applications, or when submitting manuscripts as part of data management plans, both Indian researchers and library professionals need to get adequately prepared to fully adopt the open science agenda. The 2020 Draft National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy, or STIP, provides the much needed support towards this goal. The mission statement posits building of an open science framework to provide access to scientific data, information, knowledge, and resources to all those engaging with the Indian STI ecosystem on an equal partnership basis. The policy also intends to make all publicly funded research data available to all under fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable terms. This would be a great game changer for India's research ecosystem. This new policy also recommends one nation, one subscription policy that will remove access barriers for all Indian scholars, regardless of their capacity to pay for published articles. Experts advising Indian government are also recommending scholars to archive their accepted peer-reviewed manuscripts in public online repositories, or in other words, as green open access resources. However, the policy needs to bring more attention and clarity on the issue of open data management. Another issue needing attention in the policy is related to open data access and open publication access in the social sciences. The policy is largely concentrated on science, technology, and innovation fields. It is therefore vital to acknowledge that open science practice varies across disciplines and study fields. What is acceptable and prevalent in natural and biological sciences may not always hold good for social sciences. The nature of data for social sciences includes materials such as large and very large text-based data, raw data in the form of quantitative surveys, qualitative interviews, observations, field experiments, audiovisual files, community maps, and other similar archived material. In the field of social science, researchers are additionally concerned about the protection of their data sets that often contain personal and sensitive information about individuals, and not just individuals alone, but about social categories, groups, local communities, and social institutions through data identifiers. The potential threat of stigmatizing these communities and individuals can be very real. These demand strict confidentiality and privacy. Concerns around social surveys and qualitative data sets therefore need a different kind of handling by library professionals intending to engage in research data management. So what is needed for libraries of the future? And this is my concluding section. First, universities and institutions need to develop a policy framework under which libraries need to develop research data management systems such as Dataverse, repositories, or similar other open source frameworks. Scholars can be trained to deposit their data on such repositories, but we need orientation and training not just for researchers, but for library professionals to the open science movement and its requirements. Library professionals need to be trained for research data management, that is in curation and preservation of data, and to train scholars also in retrieval and use of such preserved data. Understanding the data needs of their faculty and doctoral scholars is critical for research data management. Library professionals also need to understand concepts like data governance, data quality, metadata, and technical know-how for data storage and retrieval. Besides building skills and competencies, libraries need strong technology support, and the IT division needs to invest in infrastructure for cloud storage and for server upgrading. Given all this, it is imperative to introduce changes in library and information science curricula. At the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, we offer the Masters in Library and Information Science and the PG Diploma in Digital Library and Information Technology. And I'm sure in much larger universities, including the Somaya Vidya Vihar, there must be such very important programs offering courses for librarians. But courses such as information access and services or digital preservation and archiving, knowledge dissemination and data management need to be informed now fully by the open science approach in order to serve its multiple users and bring back libraries to the center of university system. With this, I conclude. Thank you for a very patient hearing.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As though we are lagging behind the time schedule, we can have 1 or 2 questions. We'll proceed. We can take the questions answer session later. Thank you so much, ma'am, for elaborating on research data management and open science movement. And thank you so much for your inputs for the development of our Department of Libraries and Library Science. I'm happy to share with you that, as you mentioned, the interlibrary loan in our Somaya campus, we have 34 institutions, and our all students or faculty members, they are accessible to each and every library. So though a single library has a small collection, the students are accessible. The total we have more than 6 lakhs books. So any student, any faculty can go to any library and get the book. So that is the specialty. From last 10 years we are giving this service. And before pandemic we initiated with the Somaya Institutional Repository. So that was also proved to be a very boon to students, as students were unable to come to campus. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now let me introduce our second session speaker, Shri Ajit Balakrishnan, sir. Shri Ajit Balakrishnan is the founder, chairman, CEO and principal shareholder of Rediff.com. He is alumni of IIM Calcutta and he has fetched 2 awards in 1971. So just give me 2 minutes. His public service roles includes chairman, Board of Governors, IIM Calcutta for 2 terms of 5 years each, and member of committee that updated Indian IT Act 2008, personally wrote Section 79 on immediataries. He has chaired Ministry of Information Technology Working Group on Internet Governance and Proliferation, the Education Ministry's Committee on Online Education in 2010, and the Education Ministry's Committee on National Education Policy Subcommittee on Higher Education and Employment in 2019. He was the member of Education Ministry's IIM Review Committee. The son and grandson of medical doctors, Shri Ajit Balakrishnan, grew up in a small town called Kannur in the Malabar coast of Kerala. He has authored the book, The Wave Rider, A Chronicle of the Information Age, published by Macmillan. He is passionate about machine learning and spends 3+ hours a day writing code in Python and R. I know everyone is eager to listen to him, so I request Shri Ajit sir to deliver his lecture.
Thank you. I promise to finish in 10 minutes, I promise. Okay. There's a rule inside our company, which I've been enforcing for 20 years, that no PowerPoint presentation can be more than 9 slides. You can't say it in 9 slides, don't say it. Okay? So today I may say it in maybe 9, if not 9, 10. Okay. Wait. What happened? Okay. Can I be heard right? Okay. I'm looking not from the librarian's science point of view, though I must confess that most of my friends among fellow tycoons are thinking, Ajit, why do you spend so many hours in libraries, But I feel comfortable, at the risk of bragging, my grandfather, who was in Salem, in a small town in Tamil Nadu, that is my mother's father, had a home, but there's a separate bungalow called the library, which is full of books. So, and he encouraged us, he was a doctor, and he encouraged us to go and play. So when summer holidays, we'd go there and spend 4, 5, 7 hours in the library. My paternal grandfather in a small town called Kannur in the Malabar coast, his home, he had a bungalow in a 1-acre plot, and there was another building called the library. So I'm from a little boy onwards, I and my brother, we spend time in libraries, and you see library, it seems like a grandparent's home. Soon grandmom will come with ice creams and things, So it's useful. You spend time in the library, grandmom will give you ice cream. So I have very positive connotations about libraries. So this is from the point of view of a so-called quote-unquote tech guy. Oops. What am I doing? Technology, I want all of you library enthusiasts, which I am one, to remember that technology is racing through the world at the moment. I spend a couple of hours a day at least trying to master what is going on. Just one piece of technology is blockchain. And trust me, blockchain is going to come and revolutionize the world even more than TCP/IP did. TCP/IP is the driving force of the internet. There is algorithmic trading, all kinds of bitcoins, unicorns, etc. going on. Deep learning, machine learning, all of this you will confront very soon in the business that you guys are in libraries. I'm skipping past all of this because you know that. Now, the traditional university is being unbundled. I borrowed this slide, I've given the credit at the bottom, but take an example of Harvard. It is being split into another 20 to 30 different places. The current monolithic universities that you're seeing, my prediction is the next 10 to 12 years will be broken up into pieces, exactly like the current, first the media industries got split up, that you must have remembered from the 90s onwards. There were, today there are sites which give you employment ads, sites which give you romantic ads and so on and so forth. That process is now gone to fintech with a bank, the one big bank where you borrow money and you deposit money and you do trading, etc. That is gone. My own prediction is the banks with branches won't exist within the next 5 years. They'll all close. The similar thing is in the way of happening to universities. One big place which has 50, 100 acres of land, I'm saying this about one institution right here, which it teaches everything, will get disaggregated and it will all be online. Be prepared for it. So, I said you can gratefully tell people you heard it from me. The other big thing, particularly for library people who are interested in tech databases, is there is a revolution happening in what is called graphical database, an absolute revolution. This is a little piece of code I ate, these, the SEBI, there's somebody outfit called SEBI in Bombay. So they talk to me and say, Ajit, please join at least, not SEBI, but at least the National Institute of Securities Management. So I thought it's an educational step. So I went there. I told them, guys, all your students must learn Python. You know why? Because with the Python program, with 4 lines of code, in pieces of trading data, you can make out who are the little cliques within the traders. It took me about 3.5 minutes to write the code, and you can run it on some 20 million transactions, and you'll get the answer in about 7 to 8 minutes, which are the trading cliques inside. So they were all thunderstruck. I said, if people who are now entering the research in securities, I think basic qualifications you should be able to do. These are called graphical databases. Similarly, in the library world, you need to look at some of these things very quickly. Basic coding, it is like learning how to walk. You have no excuse. You can't say, oh, I can't walk anymore. It's not an excuse. It's like that. If you can't write code in Python or R, you should not be sitting in any employment position. This is again things that you need to teach your students all over here. Network X, these are the new. They have come, and today decentralized networks like blockchain are coming and changing the way we look. So centralized libraries, centralized universities, centralized banks are all in the next 8 to 10 years go through disruption of the kind of what happened during the Industrial Revolution. So I think knowledge storage over the years, this something is, how do you make it go up a little here? Oops. Okay, what you call libraries historically, if you see all Indian mathematics are all available in things like Sulabh Shastras are all cast in stone. That's where the library, never forget, that's where the library movement started. You have to cast in stone and bury it somewhere. Okay, the Bakshali manuscript, I've spent many days and weeks studying it. That is a basic parchment which shows that algebra was invented in India. Everyone knows this answer? Can I give a general knowledge test to this erudite crowd and ask what is the origin of the word algebra? Any answers? All have failed. It comes from the Arabic word al-jabar. You know that? Hey, no. Hey, kiddos, you look young enough, you should know all this. Are you students here or professors? You? IT. Algebra in Arabic means balance. Okay, let me give you guys another general knowledge. I'm having fun now, Where does the word algorithm come from? You know? About? I'm sorry? You want to say it or yeah? Hey, no answers. All of you young-looking people here. Okay. It comes from the name of a chap called Muhammad Algoritmi. Muhammad Algoritmi was the director, like you're a director at TISS, a very revered. He was a director of an institution called the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. In the House of Wisdom in Baghdad in the 11th century, they took learning from everywhere, and there is even a book they call Algebra, the Hindu Art of Reckoning. Indians were known as Hindus, not that all of us are Hindus, but it meant India. So they, in the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, they took things from India all over the place and translated it into Arabic. And when the Ottoman Empire went and conquered Europe, these Arabic books and with algebra, etc., were taken to Spain. From there, it was converted into Latin. That's how the Europeans learnt about algebra. That is the origin. It's a true origin. You can look it up in Wikipedia. I'm not I'm not a Hindutva guy making it up, okay? I want you to know. So I think that's a Bakshali manuscript. Then it evolves into things like the Asiatic Society Library in Bombay, where I am a life member, and very often on weekends you can find me in a corner buried in books there, you know. And of course the modern Wikipedia. So I'm saying that the library is undergoing change from stone to tree barks to buildings, and now it is going virtual. And any librarian must really keep up with the times. Just to give you a 1 minute, am I well within my 10-minute limit so far? Yeah, it's another 2 minutes left. You know, just to keep you in perspective, you must view technology as having evolved over time. It's very important. For example, somewhere in the 1800s, the textile and revolution took place. The plus point was affordable clothing. In India, when people talk about against the industrial revolution, clothing was affordable only for about 2% of Indians. Many Indians at that time walked around bare-chested. It is not because they had strong breasts to show off. It's because they could not afford to wear clothes. Beyond the loincloth, you could not afford it. The factory system, with all its negatives, including most of the people employed in those Manchester factories with 12, 13-year-old children. But they made cloth, expensive, rather affordable to all. Steel, rail and ships meant affordable transport, world trade, but it also meant colonialism and slave trade. I want you to keep remembering that the current internet revolution, which I am also a party to, will come with its pluses and minuses, and the minuses are not yet known. It will soon come. In electricity, auto and petrochemicals, there was nylon, polyester, polypropylene and all that stuff. But it also meant the Bombay textile strike. Oh, I must tell you, when I came to work in Bombay after I graduated from IIM Calcutta in 1971, Bombay had 150 textile mills in Parel. You are old enough to remember that? No. You know about it? Yeah. But that Parel Road was a posh place. Okay. In a period of 9 years, they all died. Each mill employed at least 5,000 to 10,000 people. In a period of 9 years, they all died. And if you ask any historian, they'll say, oh, it is because of a man called Datta Samant. That is not true. And as a matter of fact, out of my part-time work as a researcher, full-time I'm an entrepreneur, part-time work as a researcher, this is being taped. Yeah? No, innocently, but there's a person I respect a lot called Mr. Podar. He was the owner of Podar Mills, and he was nearly 97 or so by the time I got introduced to him by his lovely granddaughter. I used to go and meet him, it was about 15 years ago, and sit with him on his balcony on his Podar chambers at Marine Drive. You must have passed it. And just humbly learn from what all happened. He also said, Ajit, this is only Datta Samant which caused it. The real cost, was what? Nylon and polyester was invented. And all these 100 and odd mills could make only cotton. And at that time, in the 70s, when all this happened, I remember an incident when I have a sister, when she was going to college in Kerala, she would throw a tantrum with my parents and say, if you don't buy me a nylon, sorry, I will not go to college. And my mother will say, you have such good saris, we got it for you from Trichy and Salem and all that. And she'll say, but cotton saris is only for old people like you. All of us were like that too. If you were in the 70s, if I was seen wearing a cotton trouser, people will say, what is wrong with you here? You had to be Raymond's polyester. That is what destroyed it. So when technology comes, it can destroy things too. It can destroy things without your knowing. Like the printed newspaper and magazine is being destroyed in front of us, right? Most of them are dead. Most are dead. They're just going on. And soon books. So when you say you're all library science people, are you going to stock books there? Be careful. We'll see what you will stock. How will you stock knowledge? You have to find new ways of stocking knowledge. And electricity, auto, all that you know. So computers and internet, now you've seen the plus points, the minus points will start appearing soon. Okay? And yeah. But tech adoption is speeding up. I'll just rush through this. Rate of adoption of technology is now, this slide data you can study and see for yourself. One thing I would like you to think about, and if you don't remember anything else that I said, there is a new method called, data self-service which is coming up. Earlier, and all these are the technologies needed. I wish I had half a class to explain this to you, but essentially, if you go to the Amazon AWS, which is a state where Amazon stores all this stuff, they'll let you put in data and tap and get the linear regression from there. You don't need to do regression yourself. So it is becoming self-service. So what is going to happen is, at the moment we think of only libraries as a place where you store things and go and search. That won't be enough. Just a search will not be enough. You'll have to be able to let people do some computation, prediction, and particularly in the humanities. If you're saying, how did the caste system develop in India? Somebody's got a research project. You go to a library site and look up caste and look up various variables that you put. You do cluster analysis of caste in 18th century, 19th century, 20th century. All those tools must be there. And people just tap and write Python code to extract it. That is the future of a library. This is, I just talked to you about what I remember in Bombay, where the textile mills went down in no time. Oh, I must tell you this, oh God. You see this famous picture of Gandhiji at Champaran? Gandhiji was a lawyer, a smart young guy practicing in Bombay, not far from where I currently live. His home was at Marine Drive in one of those corners. And then he decided to go into politics. And there was this Champaran agitation going on. And you heard one version of it, which is in Champaran, they were growing indigo. And the version we've all been taught is that the wicked British owners of the indigo plantations mistreated our workers, Indians, so badly that Gandhiji went there and helped them organize a strike against them. And that was the start of the Indian independence movement. Right? You heard? Everyone? Right. The truth is different. The truth is that in the Champaran area was growing indigo, which was exported to Europe largely, because blue was considered to be a royal color. Like you're wearing blue, it's a very fashionable color. At that time, blue was equivalent, only very wealthy people could do it. And what happened is in Germany around that time, around 1880, indigo was synthesized. It was synthetically produced. So indigo on an index price of 100, which they could sell indigo, price dropped to 1. So the British planters were bankrupted. So they couldn't pay their workers. And that is the start of, that is the truth behind the Champaran agitation. Something similar may happen when our bankers can't pay their staff. Bank strikes used to be very common in India in 1970s and 80s. That's all disappeared. Because the banking is booming, everyone giving them higher and higher salaries. So that is in the verge of starting. Bankers will not be able to afford people. The 80% to 90% of bank branches have to close in the next 10 years. So keep thinking of all this and say we want to save our sweet country gently through all of these upcoming events which are going to happen. And libraries and librarians also must make sure it can't just be a museum. My beloved Asiatic library is a museum. I love the place, a beautiful building, and I have a thing for books and a thing for old architecture as well. I go and sit there, but most often I'm the only person there. Nobody in that huge building that you may have seen. And people look at me and say, what is wrong? This guy is lost, grey-haired man has lost his job, he has no place else to go. That's why he's coming and sitting here. But anyway, that is a Champaran agitation, that The creation of nylon is what caused many of these things. This is very important. This is my second last slide. I'm about to end. Don't worry about the time. You know, there is this big breakthrough called word-to-vec. If you guys have any knowledge of programming, what is driving Google today and Google search and ads and everything else, the underlying algorithm is called word-to-vec, the converting word to vectors. You all heard about it. You guys, Kiros, you've heard. Good. What word-to-vec does is just as you can take 3 plus 2 equals 5 or 3 plus 2 minus 1 equals 4, it allows you to do similar thing with just words. That's the intellectual breakthrough of that. So if it's a king minus man 1 plus woman you enter, it immediately says queen. King depressed, the kingness is kept, the man part is removed, you add woman, it means queen, and everyone is stunned. The guys deserve a Nobel Prize. But the underlying technique you must understand. But also you can try this for yourself. If you say doctor minus man plus woman, it says nurse. It never says lady doctor. Okay, and you know why? Because word-to-vec is created by crawling all of Wikipedia and seeing the patterns there. And if a pattern of what is this thing called, not the Me Too, a period of thinking of women in a lower status is embedded in the historical part, it will come out. So being good librarians, when you go and look at data and project it and all that, remember in word-to-vec. It's very important. I'm given a simple to understand example, but it's very important. Algorithms, you must look behind the algorithm to see what prejudices contains. This is my last slide. There is a book which I wish I had brought a copy to donate to all of you. The self-service data roadmap is very important reading for all of you in the librarian world, because libraries are not going to be just places where you store books and ask people, and you give him, he'll ask and he will give. You must become places where the library site not just digitize itself, but must serve up answers like the Amazon AWS does. Very important. The platform revolution will explain to you in very interesting management terms what the internet platforms are. Network science, again, must read. Innovator's Dilemma is a kind of management school thing. And the last one is, of course, a shameless plug of my own book. Okay, so that's it, guys. I hope I've stayed within my time limit. Any questions, if any? No?
Thank you, Ajit sir, for the apt and wonderful session. Thank you for sharing your inputs about our library profession. Now I invite Vice Chancellor Sir, Somaya Vidya University, for the presidential address.
Thank you very much. Professor Shalini Bharat, Mr. Ajit Balakrishnan, Professor Shalini Ers, Mr. Satyanarayana, Dr. Vaidante, and distinguished participants for this curtain raiser event of the Library Technology Conclave 2022, jointly organized by Informatics Bangalore and Somaya Vidya University. Let me thank and appreciate the advices given by both Professor Shalini Bharat and Ajit Balakrishnan, how
what are the things to be taken care of when we integrating technology into the library system? What could be the future of the different types of technology in library and information science? And it is also very important to note that how universities can be safeguarding the research data, how it can be made available to the researchers, and what is the value of the research data. All these things are highlighted in these two lectures. Of course, Professor Shalini has mentioned about the programs which we are planning for the main conclave, and it is very important that we look at the research data management in a very holistic way. When it comes to research data management and open science or open knowledge, we know that there are different owners for that. The person who is doing the research, the person who is funding the research, then person who the institution which is publishing the research, they are all stakeholders in this thing. And of course, for the research scholar or the researcher or the chief investigator who is doing the research, getting a research publication, getting a research grant, getting a promotion, all these things are the immediate necessity. But when we produce a research document, it has to be accessible, it has to be findable, it has to be interoperable. All these things are very important when it comes to research data management. Findability, then interoperability, maybe usability, all these things are very important. So every document, every new knowledge which we produce, it can be definitely, maybe after several decades, you will find use of it. When it comes to research data, we are not talking about only the research which is created in the laboratories and universities and all that. There are also a lot of knowledge systems, traditional knowledge systems. For example, if you go to an illiterate farmer, they will have a lot of knowledge and in different areas. Maybe looking at the traditional knowledge systems and the traditional knowledge libraries also is very important. So research data is a very rich resource, and how we can make use of it through technology. That is a challenge. And technology, of course, technology is also fast changing, as Mr. Balakrishnan mentioned. Technology is also fast changing. Probably the technology which is going to use the research data today would be in the future it will be totally out of place, and probably you will find more and more new ways of doing things. And therefore it is very important that as the library and information science community taking care of this particular topic, and this is the 6th in the series, and I'm extremely glad that we are collaborating with the Informatics for making people of the country or internationally known about the importance of research data management in a proper perspective. Let me congratulate the entire team. The program chair is Professor Shalini Ers. She has been doing it for several years. She has been in the library science system for several years as well as in management. And I am very confident that this collaboration between the academic system, which is the university, and the university librarians, university library professionals, and the IT technology system represented by the informatics, is having some sort of a listening to make best use of the technology and the knowledge which is already available with the institutions in a very significant way for the betterment of the mankind. Let me wish this program all success, and let me once again thank Professor Shalini, Bharat, and Mr. Ajit Balakrishnan for their enlightening lectures and advices to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We always love to hear from you. And thank you so much for underlining the importance of library science community in RDM. Can we proceed ahead, sir? Yeah. So with sir's address, we are towards end of the session. But before I invite Mrs. Nirupama Warrior for presenting vote of thanks. Can we move it? Yeah. Okay. Can I give you mic?
By online user, online participant, Dr. N.C. Ghosh from IIM Calcutta. I'll repeat the question. Do you believe the open access policy or RDM policy should have been included in the new education policy? So maybe this is for Dr. Shalini.
The new education policy also emphasizes, as part of research excellence, to open up systems and to have more and more availability of resources, accessibility for researchers, and yes, the approach of open systems, open science system.
Any more questions? So can we proceed ahead? Okay.
I don't know. Please educate me. I don't know.
It's being developed both in New York and they gave the name Naila.
Correct. You're right. Right, remind me. You know, guys, I may also add, since I have the mic for 30 seconds, study the origin and the development of the open source software movement. Today, if you have to succeed in software, it has to be open source. And that is a big learning, and in the what I call the political economy of open source might apply to the political economy of libraries. Who will support it, who will be against it, and finally the open movement will succeed, finally. But many people will try and stop it, you'll see. Many. Correct. Yeah. So, if you study that, I wish I had time today, or could have spoken about how open source took off and things. Now, people like me who write code, we despise people who use non-open source software. It's like a caste system. Who uses these guys? Why don't even let him into the room if he doesn't use open source?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And that would end it on a lighter note also.
Yes. So before I invite Mrs. Nirupama Warrior for presenting vote of thanks, I wish to quote few lines. Zamir zindarak, Kabir zindarak, Sultan bhi ban jaye, Fakir zindarak. Zamir zindarak, Kabir zindarak, Sultan bhi ban jaye, Fakir zindarak. हार जा चाहे जिंदगी में सब कुछ, फिर से जीतने की उम्मीद जिंदा रख. My heartfelt thanks to everyone who has contributed to keep Zamir in me on live mode during the pandemic situation. Be it the doctors, nurses, or our own medical professional colleagues, the research community, the library professional colleagues, or be it our own teachers who have kept the bond live with the students during the dreadful pandemic situation. Dhanyavad and Shubha Sandhya to everyone. Over to Mrs. Nirupama Warrior for vote of thanks. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. It gives me immense pleasure in proposing the vote of thanks for this curtain raiser program of the Library Technology Conclave 2022. Before concluding today's program, I, on behalf of Somaya Vidyavihar University and the Central Library, would like to thank everyone who made this event possible. I would like to express my deep regards and gratitude to our chief guest and the first speaker, Professor Shalini Bharat, Director, Vice Chancellor, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Madam has rightly pointed out that research is pertinent to all sciences, whether experimental sciences, biological sciences, physical sciences, and equally to social sciences. Describing about the nature of libraries and the manner in which the libraries are functioning at many places, Madam pointed out that libraries are largely being remote and there is an absence of embedded librarianship. Talking about various research data management studies, various studies which points out, Madam pointed that libraries have a long way to go in aligning with the research management policies, and also mentioned that there should be a policy framework for developing research data management, and various courses need to be evolved and implemented through the open access movement. Thank you, ma'am, for these inputs. Our second speaker of the day, Shri Ajit Balakrishnan, Chairman and Managing Director, Rediff.com Online, provided insights about new opportunities and technology that technology has brought about. Sir explained how technology influences the way individuals think, communicate, and learn, and also displayed the destructive side of technology. Thank you, sir, for that interactive session. I take this opportunity to specially thank the entire Somaya management for always encouraging and supporting each one of us in various academic and co-curricular activities, thus enabling us to dream big. I humbly thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajashekharan Pillai, for encouraging us and providing opportunities to organize such events. Thank you, sir. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Conclave Program Chair, Professor Shalini Urs, Founder, Chairperson, Myra School of Business, for designing the structure of the program and arranging for expert speakers from all around the world. Madam has very finely articulated what is expected from LTC2022. Thank you, Madam. My sincere thanks to Mr. N.V. Satyanarayana, Chief Managing Director, Informatics and Conclave Chair, for highlighting the history of informatics and how it evolved, how informatics has collaborated with various educational institutions in the country that has enabled libraries in being most effective and functioning through various technological interventions. So rightly mentioned that libraries are a combination of information and technology. I would like to thank the University Librarian and Organizing Secretary of the Conclave, Professor Hindura Vaidande, for making all the arrangements and organizing this event, and also for the main upcoming event scheduled to be held from 28th April to 30th April. Thank you very much, sir. I also thank the Director of KG Somaya Institute of Management, Dr. Monica Khanna, for granting permission to conduct this curtain raiser program in this auditorium, and also to the librarian, Mr. Rajesh Memani, for making all the necessary arrangements whenever required. I thank the Somaya Vidyavihar IT head, Mr. Mahave, who is also the organizing secretary, and his team, Mr. Raghavendra Naik, Mr. Milind Khedekar, and others, for managing the digital platform for content delivery, as well as connecting both the groups, that is the people who are available in person in the conference hall today, as well as who are available virtually. My sincere thanks to the organizing committee for conducting productive meetings and giving the right direction in formulating this curtain raiser program. I thank our campus administration head, Ms. Babita Krishnan, for helping in making all the necessary arrangements to conduct this curtain raiser program at the Somaya Vidyavihar campus. My deep sense of appreciation and thanks to all the participants who have chosen to be physically present here, as well as to those who have joined us online. My special thanks to Dr. Subhash Chavan, Sir, Director, SNDT Library, Dr. Satish Kanamadi, Sir, Director, TISS Library, and Dr. Medha Joshi, Ma'am, for being present here physically. I thank Mrs. Gauri Gothivrekar, librarian, Somaya Institute of Engineering and Information Technology, for effectively comparing the entire program. Thank you, ma'am. Last but not the least, I would like to convey my heartfelt thanks to the staff of the University Library, Mrs. Kiran Sharma, Ms. Preeti Markar, and all other library professionals of Somaya Vidyavihar who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this event possible. Please pardon me if I have forgotten to acknowledge some people and we are really grateful to all of them for making this event possible. I also invite all of you all present here at the premises and those who are present online to participate in the main library technology program to be held at Somaya Vidyavihar from 28th April to 30th April. Please register and enroll yourself. Thank you everyone. I hereby request all participants to proceed for the high tea, which is arranged at the Govinda Canteen, ground floor of the Chanakya building. Thank you very much.